Hello and welcome to Brave Souls Rewind, the show where I 200 older characters so you don't have to. Today we're taking a look at one of the oldest characters in the game, Chad, who so desperately needs a remake but for some reason Caleb refuses to do it. So I guess for now we just have to settle for the only one this game has to offer. But even though he is very old, it doesn't mean he's unusable, does it? To find out, we're starting off with a normal attack damage build, which honestly I didn't even know what to think of. He does have an attack of 610, which is pretty bad, but by far not the worst in the game. I did end up increasing it by 110% and giving him 2 boosted links, and I was actually pretty impressed by the result. He was doing more damage than I actually thought he would have, and even though his SP was at 0, his strong attacks were still dealing a significant amount of damage, partially because he has Frenzy and partially because the attack stat does have a little bit to do with how much damage you deal. Still though, I did find myself dodging a lot for this character. He doesn't have the best range, he is a little bit slow, and unfortunately he doesn't even have Sprinter, which made dodging even more of a pain. But I still did have a lot of fun with this build. However, I am not going to say this is a viable build. Sure, his normal attack did a decent amount of damage, but just think of everything I had to do to stack that to my favor. I had to really increase his attack, gave him 2 boosted links, had an attribute and a killer advantage, and even then I wasn't actually able to complete the raid. Okay, so what about the strong attack damage build? His SP is pretty terrible, but he does have Frenzy, and with his attacks already doing a decent amount of damage even with the Chappy, then it stands to reason that this build should be significantly better, right? Well, correct, it is. You do actually end up dealing way more damage with your strong attacks. But the problem is the only weapon you have is your strong attacks, because your normal attack at that point sucks. It can do a little bit of damage, but for the most part you're just waiting for your strong attacks to come back to be able to deal the heavy amount of damage. And because he doesn't have Sprinter, it's hard to dodge away from your enemies while you wait for them to recharge. And yeah, he does have a strong attack recharge link that lets him come back a little bit faster, but when it's not stacked, it's almost unnoticeable. So I'm still gonna say this is not a viable build, which is a shame because they do inflict a decent amount of damage, but they have such poor range that if you miss, you're straight up out of luck. And that leaves us with the only one left, the strong attack recharge build, which is Chad's own build. And while I did notice a significant drop in damage, well with no strong attack damage links, it was still enough to take out most of the enemies in one shot. And while his range still sucked, it wasn't that big of a problem, just because you were able to use your strong attacks way more frequently. I also almost never had to use my normal attacks, which was a big plus, because they do suck. I also didn't have to dodge as much, which was also a bonus because of the lack of Sprinter. So while I am gonna say that this build is viable, I would only ever take this character when everything is stacked in my favor, which is a problem because the only current 5-star raid that has technique characters that are also Arankars is the Grimjaw raid. So unless you're doing this very specific raid, Chad is more than likely just gonna remain in your edit list. We can't be too far away from a new Chad, right? I mean, it has been over 2.5 years. So it's only a matter of time till we get a remake, right? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel. And let me know what other characters you want to see in a rewind.